Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Desert Cat Creations. Today it's week 18 of our 2025 Bead Stash Challenge. We'll be making clasps today. I'm not sure we're going to make a whole project. I think we're just going to make some clasps, and maybe Sunday we'll put them into a project. We'll see how that goes. Just because I wanted to make more than one design, so if I use it in a design, then we won't have time to make more than one kind of clasp. So anyways, that's the plan for today. Hope you all have had a great week. It's been an interesting week. For those of you that are Catholic, it was interesting that we had a new Pope elected today. That was really very quick, and it was a surprise. So hopefully this new Pope will do well. I think it sounds like he is somebody that will be interesting and do good in the world. So anyways, other news, let's see. You know, after I talked about not getting any rain on Sunday, we actually got rain. So yay, thanks for all those people that sent rain our way. It was nice having some for a change. And the flowers and all are so happy. I'm actually going to post some pictures later. Hey, Patricia, thanks for joining me. We're just getting started. So let's see. Other announcements. I am putting up a post today for the new card deck and the new bead mixes. So just a reminder, which I don't have them out in front of me because I set them aside. But we have our Desert Southwest collection. So we have a new deck of cards. I know it's backwards, but when we flip it over, it won't be. The Desert Southwest expansion. So if you're new to us, you do need deck 1, which is our base deck for all of our cards. Now, technically, you could use this by itself, but it's just very limited. But you are getting some new projects to make, you're getting new use cards, things to use, and you're getting a bunch of challenge cards that have a Desert Southwest theme to it. So I will also be making a post. This is our procured. I personally designed this with the help of Joe at Beadoria. But you're getting, I think we discovered 7 different colors of crystals in our kit, all inspired by the blooms and blossoms that I see on the cactus around here. There's also a couple other crystals and some metal that I added to the mix, but it's inspired by our desert blooms. So this is our desert blooms crystal mix. You may need to order, okay. And on top of that, we also have a metal mix. So this is a collection of, Patricia, try rebooting your stuff because my screens are still going. You can go out and come back in. But our metal mix is slightly over 90 ounces, or grams, anyways, of a combination of Southwest inspired mixes of finishes, and it has buttons, it has charms, it has beads, but this is what I'm calling my desert metal mix. Okay, so you can get all 3 of those. If you want them individually, the cards are $16. Both of the mixes are $12. And if you buy any 2, you get $2 off. If you buy all 3, you get $5 off. That's my bundle price. There will be shipping. Shipping starts at $6. If you're just ordering one set, it's probably going to be $7 to ship the whole thing. So if you're new to us, you can comment on this video if you want to order something, or you can message me at Desert Cat Creations and tell me what you want to order, and I'll I will work with you on that. I do all invoicing via email. I do not take PayPal, sorry, but that's just how it works. So anyways, so like I said, that's our exciting announcement. Those are for sale. I am going to start putting those cards into my mix. I'm thinking maybe Memorial Day weekend, but maybe the week before that. I'll double check. Because now that I'm sending them out, you know, I'd like to deal them in. But, you know, I originally was going to wait till June, but I don't know. I'm excited to get them in there, so I might. But I'll give you guys a heads up. So, anyways, oh, and the deal with, so the bundle deal, we have a Southwest bundle. I also have a beach bundle. Which I think comes out to the same price. Or no, it was the Findings bundle. The beach bundle only has 2 options. But anyways, my $2 off for 2 items goes to anything that I have for sale. So if you want 2 decks of cards, you get $2 off. Or if you want, just, you know, 2 bead mixes. You know, say you're not into my cards, but you like my bead mixes, you're welcome to just order the bead mix and the metal mix. Feel free to do that. We still have beach bead mixes, as well as I have a Findings mix and a non-jewelry Findings pack that go with our non-jewelry Findings deck. So anyways, there you go. That's my advertisements for today. And like I said, I will be posting up hopefully later today, if not tomorrow at the latest, just a place to order those the new stuff. So and like I said, the bundle price, if you get all 3, is $35. Otherwise, it's whatever your combination of prices minus $2. Anyways, hey Janelda, thanks for coming in. I did see that you paid your invoice, so I will probably get that in the mail tomorrow because I had stuff I have to do this afternoon. But let's go get started. We're gonna make clasps today. All right. So let's flip this over. Did it flip? Yep. Now let's see if I can zoom without it being red. All right. That worked okay. I didn't give you too much runaround on that zoom today. So just a reminder what we're going to make. So we are going to make a clasp or 2. That's my plan, is to make more than 1 clasp. We're going to use magenta in our design, which is why I'm wearing this bright pink shirt, because I thought it would go. We're going to use purple in our design. We're going to use gray. And somehow our design is going to be inspired by an aquarium. So you guys will have to stick with me to see how that goes, okay? So that was our cards this week. That's what we have been tasked to make. So those of you who've been watching me for a while, remember we made a clasp, and we just did this hook and eye clasp back, I don't know, it must have been in October because I used skulls. So, but anyways, I made a, you know, the hook part of this clasp has, you know, beads on it to add some color, and then we just use the hook. We built a hook to do it. Now, if you're making your own clasp from wire, this is the simplest clasp to make, I think, and it's the majority of what people make. But you can do some clever things. So I was messing around with some designs yesterday. You know, a lot of times when I'm making stuff for you guys, I'm doing it completely new, but you know, I decided to try this. But I did make a toggle clasp. It's not very even, but see, it shows it can be done. Now, I would definitely, if you're doing something with a large loop like this, I would definitely use at least 18 gauge wire, if not 16 gauge. This is 18 gauge. And then you also want to hammer it, harden it so that it doesn't get out of shape very easily. Okay, so make sure you do that. And so on this toggle, which we'll see if I try to make a toggle clasp in, I think, you know, it's certainly doable, but it's, like I said, it's uneven, but the advantage of it being uneven, right, is you put the long end through, and then it's easier to get the short end through. But once it's in there, it should hold, unless, you know, it can slip out. But so remember, if you're making a toggle clasp, your toggle needs to be at the widest point of your opening. Your toggle bar needs to be longer than that. Okay, that's what helps keep your toggles from falling off. I've been reading on, I think it's the Bargain Bead Box site. Somebody was posting that they have troubles with toggles, and they don't like toggles, and their customers don't like toggles because they come off. And it's interesting because I find a good toggle, I think, is one of the very secure type of clasps. If it's a good or well-designed toggle that doesn't, you know, is wide enough. But that also means whatever you put next to this toggle has to be able to pull through the loop in order for you to get it on there. So anyways, we may mess with the toggle, we may not. I haven't decided yet. We're going to show some other ones first. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. All right, so we're gonna make a clasp. So I've got some 18 gauge wire we're gonna work with today. Oh, Patricia, sure. So the Southwest deck, I do have one open. So it's the projects are things that remind me of the Southwest. Now, I don't want to show them all because I want some of it to be a surprise, but we'll show this one because it is on the thing. Is making a dream catcher is one. I'll show you one other. Making a lariat necklace, right? So those are kind of things that, you know, I think are inspired by the Southwest. So you're getting 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're getting 7 additional make cards. And then the used cards are things that kind of go along with that you normally see in like Southwest designs. So like I think I showed the coral and spiny oyster. A lot of times you'll see turquoise and coral used together, or turquoise and spiny oyster. Now, again, if you don't have coral or spiny oyster, use the colors in your design if you draw this card. Don't worry if you don't have spiny oyster or something. You can use, so spiny oyster is typically purple or orange. Coral, the red corals or the orangish corals, right? And it has things like using copper. Now, so some of these, you know, do repeat with other things, but, you know, copper, silver is often used. Anyways, so some of these are like using turquoise again, right? So there are some things that will repeat. So those are the used cards. And then the challenge cards will be things with a Southwest theme. So just this one on top, do something inspired by a cactus, right? Or do something inspired by New Mexico. Now, you know, different people have different definitions of what they consider the desert Southwest. So, you know, most people definitely think of Arizona and New Mexico as being in it. Sometimes Nevada, sometimes Colorado is included. Sometimes Colorado is not included, although most people don't realize that Colorado is a high desert. So it is still desert, and because it's Indian country, I include it in my definition. Certainly Texas has some, can be included in the desert Southwest. There are definitely some things that I would say would remind me of Texas that aren't in my desert Southwest, because I thought that might be a future thing. But anyways, it's things that, you know, like Native American styles, and things that are inspired by the cultures around here. So some of it's our Mexican culture, some of it's the Native American, and some of it's just our natural influences around here, you know, the kind of plants and things you see, and animals and things you see. So hopefully that answers your question. But anyways, so yeah, if you're interested, like I said, just send me a message and I will add you to our list. But anyways, okay, so back to today's class. I pulled out a few things. I have to say thank you to Kate Stars Beads and Bedoria, because they sent me a nice little freebie with magenta beads in it. So we're going to use some of those. Today I've got some purple designs. I've got these crystals that have purple in them. They're a little light because, you know, and then I have a couple of different kinds of gray beads here. A couple different sizes of purple beads. And then for my aquarium, let's move those out of the way a minute. You know, I pulled out some fish and some starfish, or it's not starfish, seahorses. And I did pull out a starfish, so anyways, I thought, you know, we'll see how we work those into our design. So all right, so used two from the the magenta mix. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a great mix, and I have to say, you know, ever since magenta was the color of the year, it's not an easy color to find. So in my you will see in the Southwest bead mix, the Desert Blooms mix that I got, there is sort of a burgundy colored bead in there, as well as a bright pink, and I will post more of the influences behind that. But there weren't a whole lot of options available, and I don't know if it's just because they're sold out and they're popular or what, but in the you know, the bright pinks, the burgundy kind of magenta colors, and even, like I said, when it was the color of the year, I had a hard time finding it. So anyways, all right, so let's just start with we'll make a hook and eye clasp. I'm going to use, like I said, 18 gauge. Now, if you're going to make a small one, you could use like 20 gauge, but you know, you probably don't want to make, I may have used 20 gauge back here, but I probably wouldn't make a loop bigger than that if I was, you know, if I'm using 20 gauge wire. So if for some reason you need a bigger loop for the style that you're making, you need to use thicker wire. But 18 gauge, sometimes the holes are small, so you do have to pay attention to whether or not it'll fit through your beads. Okay, so I'm gonna do something similar to this. We'll make the hook and eye clasp again. And by the way, this video was transferred over to YouTube in case you're wanting to see it again. But I'm going to put some beads on here. I'm going to put a loop at both ends. So this way, you know, I can put all these colors into my design, right? So I'm going to put a little purple crystal. And then maybe a magenta one. Let's see if our tiny fish will do on here. And I probably should have tried to find some smaller gray beads. So, you know, if I make this a, you know, put a loop on both ends. You got to remember this is going to be long. Now, so for necklaces, that's probably not a problem. If I'm going to use it on a bracelet, I probably want to do what's on here and have my hook be very flexible so that this ends up kind of working as a link on your bracelet, because anything thicker than that is going to be, you're going to need it to bend after that. So anyways, let's go ahead and, so I've got all 4 of my things included on there. Let's go ahead and make this loop. So I'm just going to put a small loop on one end because obviously it's going to be connected to something, you know, a bracelet or a necklace. So we're just going to do a wrap loop here. So we do our 90 degrees at about, you know, 3/4 of an inch. Now, you know, this is thick wire, so you will need, most likely need some, to use your other pliers, unless you have really strong fingers. Now, I can get this started because it's long enough, but once it gets shorter, I'm going to have to use my other pliers to tighten it. Now with this thick wire, you know, as long as you're at least one time around, it's not going anywhere. Okay. So that much I can tell you. All right, so now I've got my small loop at one end, so I do need a bigger loop here so that I can hook my wire through it. Now, you know, I could hook, if I make a hook that doesn't have this loop at the bottom and it just ends up being like the end of an ear wire, it would fit through the small one. But anyways, we're not going to do that. So I am going to, again, I'm just going to take the tip of my pliers. We're going to make a 90-degree turn, and now I have to decide what size loop I want. So I think we'll use maybe the second from largest loop on our 6 size looper, and I'm going to pull it around. Now, keeping this on the spool actually helps with bending this wire, because I can use the spool to, or the, I don't have to hold it as hard. So I am going to keep it, I'm just going to pull it around, and I'm keeping my wire in the looper so that it stays round. That's really nice of you, Patricia. Sorry to hear about your neighbor. I enjoyed seeing your the jeans jackets. Those are pretty neat. I had an old jeans jacket that probably would have been really fun. All right, so I have my loop here. Now I might want to hammer this loop just to make sure it's nice and tight, although I used 18 gauge, so it's pretty stiff. So I'm going to leave that for the moment. And then we need our hook and you know, our hook to go through the other end. So I'm going to take the second to smallest on this 6-point looper. I'm going to stick the end of my wire in, and I am going to turn that. Now, you can decide how long you want this. It can be short or long, you know, so you can make it just like an ear wire, right? So I have that. I'm going to turn it so that this wire faces up a little bit. And now I don't want, you know, like an ear wire, you want, you know, big loop that's going through your ear. Well, this loop only has to go through here, so you don't need something very large. So I think I will just take I'm just going to take, you know, go out a little ways, and we're going to try it with just I'm going to try it with this third size up, because I can always make it bigger if I need to. Okay, so I've made a small loop there, and now I can just I'm going to trim that off, and I'm going to trim it off a little, you know, a little ways past the other one. All right. And then I am going to put it in the smallest one on here, and I am going to just turn this and make a loop here on the end, okay? So I have a big circle that's going to connect to my my bracelet. Now you could certainly make that a wrapped loop if you wanted, in which case I would make this come up here a little ways further, but I didn't. I just made it a loop that I could hook on. This one I did make a wrap loop, so you know you're gonna have to hook something into that. And I wasn't gonna get my hammer out, but I am gonna get my hammer out because I need to hammer this. Oh, trying to take the lid off, and the lid's already off. All right, so I'm a little tiny bench block here, which I love this thing for these small projects. But you know, if you're doing metalsmithing, you got to get out your big one. But I am just gonna hammer, and make sure you don't hammer your hand or your fingernails, and make sure to flip it over and hammer both sides so that you kind of get the same design on either side, right? Because otherwise one side's kind of flatter than the other, or might have some texture to it depending on how much you control your hammering. So some people are, you know, I'm using a little tiny hammer. If I was using a bigger one, I would get a lot more texture in here. So like I said, so this small end is the one that's going to go through the loop. So, you know, I just want it tightly on there, and its sole purpose is to keep things from catching on your clothes, your hair, your skin, whatever, right? So, all right. And so then when you put it on your bracelet or necklace, it just hooks in like that. So that's a hook clasp. So like I said, you could put this on a bracelet, and we might. Now, if you're going to use a hook clasp on a bracelet, so we were talking about toggles a minute ago, and some people find that toggles come off. A hook clasp does need to be tight, so you need to be pulling it past the tightness that you want it. It needs to be very fitted, otherwise on a bracelet it will come off, okay? But if you have it on there pretty tight, it's not going to be able to loosen on its own. Gonna be windstorm out there, my things are crackling. Okay. All right, so let's make another class. So have any of you ever made your own toggle clasps before? Put these on here a minute. These tools out of the way. So next we're going to make an S-clasp, and I don't have a sample one out here anywhere, But remember, I gotta, so I might want to do my criteria. You know, I get these starfish out, but they're a little large for, I think, what we want to do here. So I may not put an aquarium on this one because, you know what, remember that aquarium can be put in your project. But my first one met all the criteria. I got a fish for my aquarium, I got gray, I got magenta, and I have purple, right? And it's a clasp. So on this one, I think I will just put some pretty beads in the middle. And then I may need to do a little wire wrapping to hold it in place. So let's think. I am going to end up cutting this because of the length of my beads. I've got about 1 inch for my beads. And let's see what length. I didn't bother to measure the other stuff because, you know, there's no set length that you need to use. It's whatever works for your project, right? So you know what? I may actually have an idea. I'll take that off there for a minute. And we'll get my 20 gauge wire just because. And we're going to make an S-clasp, but what I'm going to do is make the middle be now, like I said, remember when you draw things like making the top clasp or making head pins or whatever, you can just make the head pins, you know, and try to meet your criteria or the clasp, or you can, you know, make sure the whole project represents all of those cards. So I'm going to put a wrap loop at the end of this. And so basically I'm making a link here. And then I'm going to turn my link into a clasp. Right. Oh. Right. Now sometimes if my wire starts slipping and doesn't sit nicely in there, once you get the beads snuggled up there, it's easier to tuck in the end of that wire. And again, I'm just making a link that satisfies all my color requirements here. And I'm putting a wrapped loop at both ends. And then you'll see what we're doing. You know, the nice thing about making your own thing, you can make everything unique. Tucking in the wire there. All right, so now I have a link with my with all my color requirements. Now what I want to do is add a hook to both sides, but so that this stays being one piece, I am going to put wrapped loops at the ends. So So don't forget to attach it to whatever you're going to attach it to. And because this is thick wire and hard to do with your fingers, because 18 gauge, I don't know about you, but I cannot do small wires with my fingers these days. I have to use my pliers. It's much easier that way anyways. All right. So then I'm just making my hook on the end here. So again, I don't want it to necessarily be huge, but I think I'll go out a little ways. We'll see how that goes. And then I'm just going to, oops, can't cut the wire with my pliers. Trim that off. And I am going to make a very small loop here. You know, if you have those pliers that make circles for the ends of memory wire, that might actually work well for this project and the 18 gauge so I have a loop at one end, and then I am going to put one at the other end. I don't think this wire is long enough, so we're gonna just work off the spool here. All right, so I've got my loop. And I am going to connect it onto the other side of my link. And then I am going to finish my wrap loop here. So we're basically making an S-clasp. So, you know, if you ever make a clasp and a link and use a link card in the same thing, that's basically what we're doing here. All right, I'm just tucking that wire. I don't want any sharp edges. Hey, Marianica. Thanks for joining me. All right, now, so I do have a decision here. Now, fortunately with wire, I can kind of switch it, so I probably want to make this about the same size. So remember, I used this third one, and I went out from the top of my loop about 1/2 inch, so that's where I want the top of my curve is right there. All right. So normally I would be bending around it differently, but because I measured to where I want the top of the curve. Oh, you know what? I did too big of a loop there, so it's okay. We can crush it down a little. And again, I'm just going to cut it right at the bottom here. And we will make our little loop at the end. So again, I just want to squeeze that in tight, and then, you know, you just want to kind of pull that in. So with an S-clasp, you know, this can hook to something at both ends. So, you know, you could hook it into a, you know, like just a chain to make something decorative. Better, you could almost use it as an extender, right? And so I did end up with my loops going opposite directions, so that's kind of fun. And if I want to make this include my aquarium theme, I can put a dangle on there. What do you think? Should I dangle? Okay, I'm taking votes. I've got the seahorse. I have a starfish. Or I have a glassfish or a middle fish. So 1, 2, 3, or 4. What do you guys think? Which one should I add to my clasps so that I have all of my criteria covered? I will look for my silver head pins. Well, we may have to make our own head pin. Oh, they're there. Not that we can't make our own head pin, but that's not today's criteria. So 4, okay. Got a vote for 4. Anybody else want to vote? All right, I've got some head pins here. Mariana, good votes for number 2. All right, anybody want to be my tiebreaker between 2 and 4? Or do we add them both? Because we could add 1 to both sides, right? So. We'll remove the starfish. And both, okay. We can do that. Let's add 1 to each side. See if my short head pins are long enough. Should be for this guy, yeah. All right. So I'm just since these are beads as opposed to charms, you know, if they were, I could have used charms, but I didn't get charms out. I got beads out. So we're making our own dangles. And I'm going to attach it to, I think, this loop. Seems like a good place to attach it to. I can attach it like right next to the bead, but I think that's going to be a lot harder to work with. So we will put it you know, and as usual, our goal here is to make something we wouldn't have created otherwise, which I can tell you, I would not have created this without the cards, probably. I don't know where I would have come up with the idea. So, one reason I'm looking forward to putting the new deck in is that we had a lot of beach-related designs. Not that I don't like beach, and not that it's not getting summery, but hey, you know, we need to mix it up a little bit, right? All right, so we've got that on one end. Let's put our starfish on the other end. Now remember, when you're using something like this starfish or a star as a dangle, you want to find the part that's between the points to have your end, because otherwise it's very hard to wrap your loop if you're trying to do it in that indentation. So it's much easier to do at the point. And probably technically to somebody there's a right side up and a top and a bottom, right? So you see the point at the top of the star, right? So, all right, so I want to put this on going the opposite direction. So I think I want it on the top part here. And like I said, maybe Sunday we'll put this into a design, since we didn't do that today. We are just making clasps today. But the nice thing is, you know, I have some pre-made clasps now for use with other designs. Okay, and we have to switch which pliers I'm holding with, because these, if you do not own a pair of these skinny flat nose, you need them. They're excellent. They are the best thing ever for tucking in ends. I don't know why, but they seem to work better. And I'm just gonna, looks like I need to do some tucking there. On this one, I gotta be careful. I am next to a glass bead. Make sure this one's tucked in tight. There. All right. Use yours all the time. Yeah. I didn't think I needed them, and once I had them, I don't know how I ever lived without them, right? All right, so there's our S-clasp. So let me, I'll just pull out a piece of chain and show you how you would attach this, although, sure. So, you know, if I wanted to make this into a quick necklace, just with the chain, what I could do is stick that loop through there on one side, and then stick it through the other one. And like I said, I've got a quick necklace. Now, once I put this on, I might want to bend these in a little. And I certainly, you know, hammering those loops is probably a good idea. Let me get my tools out of the way, just because they make my workspace look extremely messy. All right, so we made two different kinds of clasps. I mean, they're both, like I said, with loops. So this one I would attach, you know, if I was going to use this one. Okay. So my S-clasp, you know, you could have made that, I could have made that solid, and it would end up being, you know, kind of a bar. And those bar necklaces are very popular right now, so you wouldn't need an additional clasp. So you would put that, you know, if you made this a short necklace, it could be tied around your neck, and this would be the center point of your necklace. Should be a fun little necklace. And actually, you know, those three colors work pretty well together, huh? since I made them floppy, you know, it's still going to work, but, you know, if you use it on a longer design, something to think about. And if you're going to do it, if I'm going to use this as a bar for the front of a necklace, I'm probably going to want to twist this so that my charms are hanging the same direction, because it is kind of flipping around a little bit. But anyway, so this, if I wanted to use this clasp with this chain, so this side, all right, Janelle, thanks for joining me. This side I would use a, you know, I could use a jump ring to attach it, or I could, you know, wire wrap a small bead and attach it onto that chain. And then the other end, you can just open this up and put it on the chain. And then you end up with, you know, something that looks similar. But you have, you know, just a small piece of color to add to your chain. So that's how you use both of those. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up, and, you know, maybe at some point we'll work on making our own toggle clasps. Like I said, I need to work on the toggle part a little bit, because I wasn't particularly happy with how it came out. Here's another version of this. I didn't use the bead, but I do have multiples available. So, like I said, so maybe we will see a future design with those clasps in them. So, all right, thank you for joining me today. Let me put this around. I hope you had fun making your clasps. Again, if you haven't already, please like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm continuing to move some videos over. I have about 5 more old videos that I'm trying to move over, and then I'm trying to keep up with, I still have to do 2 of the ones from April, but everything from April 1st and on will be there. And I'm moving a couple of them from earlier this year. But I lost March because of the new rules, and I didn't realize that I could have done it. So we're not going to recover those March ones, so, just so you know. And I think half of February is when they changed it. But anyways, the newer ones are there. And please try to subscribe, but you do have to have a Google account in order to subscribe to video or to channels. But if I can get up to 50 subscribers, then it'll allow me to broadcast on both of them, and I don't have to spend my time moving things over, or I can do lives separately if there's reasons for doing that. So any help would be appreciated. Let's see if the hearts are working today. Is it gonna let me? It's not gonna let me. I need to, apparently they changed some setting. You don't like my heart, huh? All right, whatever. I need to figure out how to reset that. So anyways, all right, thanks again. I will see you on Thursday, noon Pacific. Or no, sorry, today's Thursday. Sunday at noon Pacific for week 19. We will do our drawing, see what we're going to make next week. And then I will join you again on Thursday. So, thanks again, and I appreciate all your support. I will see you on Sunday. Bye.